Welcome back to the Crash the Pond podcast. And by the end of this week, welcome back to the Anaheim Ducks season. This is the last podcast we are going to have recorded where there has not been a regular season game for the next, 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is. Exciting times in Duckland, as a famous person once said.
Yeah, shout out Lou. Yeah, definitely exciting time in Duckland. Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like the offseason felt like it took forever while it also went by in a flash, right? Like, it's kind of weird that we're here already, that the preseason's done. Rosters have been set. All of the preseason drama, all the training camp drama is over, finally. And we can finally move on and just get to the season.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy how the offseason felt like it would just never end. And then you get to training camp and it doesn't quite feel real yet. Contracts are still up in the air, and then all of a sudden, bang, bang, everyone's signed, and here we are. I mean, the NHL season is actually starting on Tuesday.
Yeah.
But the Ducks really lucked out, I think, and
Yep.
aren't going to play until the weekend, and so they have more time to lick their wounds, to get ready, to practice some more, and really, I mean, they're going to need all of it because they're going to have a tough schedule to start. But
Yeah.
it's going to be fun, but we've got a lot to talk about today. This is going to be a loaded podcast, so strap yourselves in, get comfortable, or do whatever you do when you listen to podcasts, but be prepared for the long haul because this one's going to be a good one. Jamie Drysdale, he is signed. He is a Duck. After on the last podcast, we talked about Trevor Zegras signing his extension, 3 years, 5.7. Jamie Drysdale comes in at 3 years as well. 2.3 million AAV, and it felt like this one was a little bit less of a splash just because the Trevor Zegras shoe had already dropped, but just your thoughts on Jamie Drysdale being locked up.
Oh, thank God it's over. Actually, the funny thing is,
Yeah.
You were the one, to give people a little funny story here, you were the one that told me about this deal because I was out and about driving. It was during lunch, and got a text as I was parked from Felix saying Drysdale. And so I was about to get driving again, so called him, and he was the one that told me about the deal that happened. And you and I went on to have
that feels like a month ago.
Feels like it's weird that we haven't done a podcast since then because,
Yeah.
To be fair, you and I talking on the phone basically ended up being like a podcast at that point in time with how we dissected and everything like that. But my initial reaction, to go back to your original point, was just relief that this is done, relief that Drysdale can be in camp. I think same thing is kind of my reaction when Zegras signed. Relief, excitement, everything along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, 3 years, 2.3, Evolving Hockey had him pinned right around there projection-wise.
Yep.
And so now he's kind of in a similar boat as Trevor Zegras. He's going to have 2 more seasons until he's a UFA after that. And really, this sets up the Ducks nicely once again, where they don't have to worry about a scenario where a guy only has 1 year until his UFA eligibility. So they still have a nice runway afterwards to get him locked up.
I think there's an extra year after that, actually.
So he's signed for 3 years, so 23, 24, 24, 25, 25, 26. And
I
then
think
26,
he will
27, 27, 28. And
I think he is not. Puckpedia has it like that.
They have him at 2028 for his UFA year.
All right, I want to DM them because I kind of think it's 1 more year later because he did not get a full year of service last year.
Okay, well,
because
you go for that.
Yep, we'll find out.
Wouldn't he have been? Anyway, doesn't matter.
His contract started the same time as Zegras, or years of service all started the same time as Zegras, so he would be a UFA 1 year later than Zegras in this situation. If last year did not count as a year of service.
I feel like we had talked about this on the phone and we had gotten to the conclusion that it's 2028, but I forget how we got there.
Yeah, I do too. I think maybe I was in the car and didn't fully grasp it.
Anyway, doesn't matter. The point is, they're avoiding that 1 year scenario, and I think that what's interesting about the Drysdale situation versus the Trevor Zegras situation is that Elliot Freeman talked about on the 32 Thoughts podcast that the Ducks never really budged on Jamie Drysdale. And it basically sounds like Drysdale is the one that blinked and that he just kind of wanted to get back in there and play, which I do not blame him at all for. But it seems like, whereas with Trevor Zegras, the Ducks came up to his number pretty significantly. Mm-hmm. It would in fact seem, it seems like they kind of had their way with Jamie Drysdale in terms of how this ultimately shook out.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense with everything we heard about this deal. And I think it also makes sense, and it kind of verifies everything we talked about last week with Trevor Zegras, right? And a lot of people saying kind of they met in the middle. No, it sounded like more or less they met Zegras at his number, and this was a little bit of the opposite, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like Drysdale may have over-evaluated where he was at. We really don't know at the end of it all because we don't know any of the two negotiating sides. But you have Jamie Drysdale basically coming in at, what was it, 2.275? I have cap friendly open right now. 2.3. And Evolving Hockey had him projected if he signed in the August 1st to October 12th window at 2.429 on a 3-year deal. So basically market value, no matter which way you look at it. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's great for him, great for Zegras. They both got exactly what they deserved from essentially where the market dictated they should be. And the Ducks get 2 guys under contract for 3 years at very cap-friendly deals for the 2 teams as a result of it being a 3-year term. The downside of that, from the Ducks' perspective, is if both these guys show up and go out and go off over the next 3 years, after 3 years, they are going to have to really pay up for both of these players.
Yep.
So that is essentially the 2 sides of this.
Yeah, and at that point, the Ducks are going to have to be signing, other contracts like the summer where Drysdale's an RFA. So cap friendly has him as an RFA. So his next contract when it comes up, Mintyukov will be coming up, Luneau will be coming up, Leo Carlsson will be coming up, and Zegras will be coming up. So all 5 of those guys are going to be RFAs the same summer. So, I mean, that is kind of like you were saying, the other side to this whole bridge deal situation is now you're creating more work for yourself in a shorter period of time. Like, it's possible that they try to get this done sooner for some of these guys. Like, I hope, but I don't think that all 5 of them they're going to take them all the way down to the wire, all 5 the same summer. That seems kind of unwise, especially with like Leo Carlsson, but we'll see. I mean, it's going to be really interesting now that summer of 2027 is going to be, summer of 2026 is going to be another one to watch. Also, I should just point out that Cam Fowler and Radko Gudas come off the books that summer.
Yes, and summer prior to that, you have Frank Vetrano coming off the books. So this upcoming summer after this, you have Silverberg and Henrique coming off the books. So there is money coming off the books in the upcoming years that the Ducks will be able to allocate to there. And you also have the conversation around the salary cap supposedly going up, I think, to 87.5 is what I think Elliot Friedman said the rumor is. So there's that. I do wonder, this is now jumping ahead a little bit, but it's relevant to the conversation of the 3-year term. I wonder how that does impact some of the conversations that internally the Ducks are having with Pavel Mintyukov and Tristan Luneau. And we'll get into more of this overall when we break down the rosters completely. But both those guys are eligible for entry-level slides. And so if they play over 9 games, if they play 10 games or more, it will count as a year off their ELC. And while I typically don't think that matters as much as the general public makes it out to be, because at the end of the day, if they don't play the full season, they're not going to have that great of numbers. It will help the Ducks from the negotiating perspective. So all in all, it's not as much of a negative impact on the team to burn that year as it's typically made out to be by a lot of people. But I think when you're looking at this long-term planning, right, and if you can maybe push out Mintyukov and Luneau an extra year, that maybe helps out from that perspective. I don't know if that is going to play into any of the decision-making here, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Well, I mean, scroll down to the non-roster players, because summer of 2026, Gaucher is an RFA, Zellweger is an RFA, Noah Warren is an RFA, Tyson Hines is an RFA.
Correct.
So,
Noah Warren is ELC slide, I think.
Okay. Well, that's what they have listed right now. So 2026.
Yeah, correct. But he's probably not going to play in the NHL this year. He's already been sent back down as junior, so he will not be.
Okay. So remove Warren. I mean, you still have Zellweger, you still have Hines, you still have Gaucher, you still have Passagov, and then you add that to the.
Gaucher will be ELC slide also.
Okay. So
just trying to add that context here.
Zellweger and Hines, you can add them into that mix as well. And really, I mean, unless those two are ELC slide eligible as well, which I don't see the arrow, so hopefully Jake won't, correct me here, but that group is going to be a big one. And maybe what you're saying is right, that they're going to use those little levers to try to make that a little more palatable for themselves in that summer. We'll see.
Yeah. Yep. Although, I mean, you just mentioned, we just talked about Noah Warren and Nathan Gaucher. I mean, if you do an entry-level slide for Minchikov and Leno and don't play them 10 games or more, then you have all 4 of those guys the next summer. So I think this is just kind of what happens when you have so many high-quality prospects coming into the team. It's just you're stuck on 3-year deals with those guys no matter what, and they're always going to line up. I think the interesting thing is just the fact that Drysdale and Zegras also signed to those 3-year deals, but could just be the nature of the beast in this situation.
Well, I mean, it's like I said on the last podcast. I think that in both scenarios, it's a matter of the team not being sold on the players completely and not ready to commit long term. I mean, Elliot Friedman even said it, that this was always basically the negotiations started on bridge deals.
Yeah.
There was never a discussion of long-term deals. And so, like, that's on the team. You know, this headache that they're going to have, that they're going to have to do some maneuvering, like, you have to sleep in the bed that you make. And they were not sold enough on Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale to commit long-term. You know, Pat Brisson or Pierre LeBrun quoted Pat Brisson saying that they would have been open to a long-term deal. So, I don't know. We'll see on that. But just to get back to Jamie Drysdale, though, I think that it's just going to be fascinating now because we don't have to think about this anymore. And to me, he's maybe in my top 3 most interesting Ducks players this season. Like, we haven't seen him play in what feels like forever. It has been forever. It's been like over a year. And he's going to have to show, and he's going to have to prove that he's more than just kind of this guy who can skate, kind of fancy skating up the ice. And that's it. Like, he has to show that there's more depth to his game. I think he can do that, and I think he probably will do that. But this is a big year for him because, like we were just talking about, with all the RFAs down the road, like there's a lot of competition on the blue line for the Ducks that's coming up.
And I think also just kind of out of curiosity to see how he plays after a year off, right? Like, I think from all the information we've seen, all the videos we've seen, everything like that, he's definitely put on some muscle and put on some muscle mass there to really help out with him down low. And I'm just curious to see how he plays after that much time off. I'm very intrigued by the potential for having him paired with Cam Fowler. And this is really just a massive, massive year for him because I think you and I both saw some improvements in his game to start last season. And specifically, I think the Ducks power play was at their best in a 1 or 2 game stretch that he was on the top unit. Like, I think they actually looked really dynamic with him there. And so I'm very curious if he's going to get another look at that position. And I think it's going to be really nice to see him on the ice, really nice to see him out there. I think him getting signed, even if it was this late, the fact that the Ducks have a full week until their first game, or a full week from when he signed, over a full week from when he signed, that gives him more than enough time to try to get up to speed. Sure, it's not ideal, it's not perfect, but the Ducks playing their first game on Saturday really will help out with him because they have a full week of practice this week.
Yeah, and so the question of the whole hardball thing, you know, with Pat Verbeek, did it work this time? I mean, you look at the deal that Jamie Drysdale got, and it is still a fair deal for both sides in terms of the AAV, like the number that he would get, the AAV he would get at that term. So I don't really consider this necessarily a quote-unquote win for Pat Verbeek in terms of the actual number. But you could say it's a win for Pat Verbeek in that this is the contract that they wanted, and they got it. Like, they got exactly the contract they want. So
correct.
They're not really saving money in the contract that they wanted, but they also got the contract they wanted. So
correct. Yeah, this one we don't have as much of an idea because it's been a bit more tight-lipped of what Drysdale was asking for. So it's really hard to say one way or the other in terms of if the hardball worked or not.
Yeah. Moving on. So we have a lot to get through here.
We do.
Roster moves. This is a quick hitting list, but I'll just go through each item and you can react to each. This might make it easier. So I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. I'm gonna give you the floor. Zach Kassian released from PTO.
Can I go on my victory lap right now?
Take your victory lap.
Take my victory lap because the first time we discussed this, right? A Patreon podcast. What did I say on that episode? Don't really feel like talking about PTOs that much. Let's talk about it when he signed to a contract. We proceeded to talk about it for a good 10 to 15 minutes, begrudgingly for myself, though. Did not want to talk about it. Did not feel the need to talk about it. And as this went on in camp, you heard the voices come up of, he's made it this far in camp. How is he not going to get signed? And I think actually kind of the lesson learned from my perspective on this is guys making it deeper in camp actually probably make it less likely that he's going to get signed. You look at Nathan Beaulieu. He was signed earlier. He was signed, I think, October 1st last year. So earlier on in camp. And you had Rocco Grimaldi go basically the entire camp, playing every single game, scoring a bunch of goals, not getting signed to a deal, released from his PTO, and signed to AHL only deal. And I think just as the preseason went on, as the roster started taking more and more shape, it just became a situation where I just didn't see a roster spot for him at all. Because with the fact of it becoming clear that Bo Gru was going to be on this roster, and Leo Carlsson not being as hurt, and we'll get into the injury. We still haven't even talked about that part of it.
We'll get there.
But that left the Ducks at 13 skaters. And it really seemed like the Ducks were going to go 8 defensemen, and that just left no open roster spots. And it just didn't make sense to also sign Zach Cassian to a deal if Leo Carlsson was hurt, because he was going to be coming back from injury at some point. So then you waive him and send him to the goals. And it's like, do they really want to do that? Does Cassian even really want that? Because keep in mind, he's on a PTO. He does not have to sign a contract off of it. If he thinks that he's going to just go to the AHL once this team's healthy, that's probably not exactly a situation he wants to be in. So it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Felt like a lot of worrying, and turned out to just be that.
Well, here's also why it didn't make sense. Zach Cassian sucks.
Well, yeah.
Zach Cassian is just...
Fair.
Like, watching him play was just kind of like, oh, man. Like, just so slow, not making the right plays. Like, it was just like, man, hard to watch.
I am so happy that I can talk about the game from last Thursday without even having someone saying, well, he's going to be signed, so we're going to have to deal with it.
I mean, I think it was weird that they kept using him on the power play. Like,
it didn't...
Anyway, we're done with this. We don't
Regardless,
have to talk about it ever again.
He had awful reads. That game, I was sitting on the side where they got a lot of power plays. I think he blocked more shots than the goalie saved on the power plays in that game.
You mean blocking his own team's shots?
Correct. Yeah. He was a great penalty killer. He cleared the zone for the Coyotes in that game. Was a fantastic penalty killer.
Some ill-advised penalties that he took too. Not great, Bob. Okay,
Yep.
moving on. Olin Zellweger sent down. Bummer, because he's a fun player. Would have liked to see him play, but personally, I think that this is a good move for him. He gets to go play under Matt McIlvaine. He's going to develop. His timing just seemed a little off in the preseason, and was just kind of trying to force it a little too much, trying to be the guy instead of just playing within the flow of the game. And now he gets to go work on that in San Diego. And I mean, I'm happy for Goals fans, because the Goals now just got a huge shot in the arm in terms of watchability. So.
Yeah, 100%. And this is one of the things I was wrong on. One of the stances I had last week was that the Ducks were going to go 8D. And I was right on that side of it. Was not right on the fact of, I thought they were going to keep Olin Zellweger up and have him and Minchukov split games. Yeah. And so one of them play on Saturday, one of them play on Sunday. That turned out not to be the case, and I think it's completely fine either way that you want to do it. I think probably what did him in a little bit here in terms of making the team was probably that game in LA. I think that was probably his worst game of the preseason, and that was the last game he played of the preseason campaign. I think the 2 games against San Jose, he was really good, especially the one in San Jose. But I think that LA game was a little bit of an adventure for him, and that maybe left an impression to where if he was trying to earn a roster spot, that may have stopped him from doing that. And so you're spot on with the fact that going to the AHL is not going to necessarily be a bad thing for him. There was obviously in our Discord, and I think it was maybe the Patreon episode, we talked about kind of if the AHL is a good developmental league, and there's definitely some questions about that. But I think the environment that the Ducks are going to create with the Goals and Matt McIlvaine is a good development environment overall. And I think Olin Zellweger is going to benefit from going down there and playing with Matt McIlvaine. That's not to say that he would not benefit and develop from being in the NHL also, but he's kind of the odd man out here with how much depth. He just might hurt
the NHL team right now. That's I think the reason why he's going to the AHL.
I don't even know if it's that. I just think that look at the left.
I think that's part of it.
I think you look at the left side. I think that Minchukov outplayed him in preseason. I think you're spot on in that analysis. And I think Lacombe outplayed him in preseason. So if you're looking at, and he's not going to play over Cam Fowler. So if
No.
you're looking at one of those guys, he's the odd man out.
Yeah, I just think that with Zellweger, even the games where he was putting up points, he was still making some pretty questionable plays. And kind of to your point, it's just if you're not really grabbing it by the horns, there's so many other guys that you're just going to get phased out.
Yep.
And then two other quick hitters, Stalock and Agazino down in the AHL. So great news on the Stalock front. I mean, sucks for him, I guess, but I'm really happy because I want to see Lucas Dostal play. Andrew Agazino down. Lassie Thompson waived. He's back with the Senators now. Yep. So all that for that. But I mean, really, I think once Drysdale came back and once he had that horrendous game, that horrendous turnover against Arizona, that was kind of it. Colton White and Robert Hagg down in the AHL. We actually haven't been able to talk about that on the podcast. And then Leo Carlsson, hurt in practice. I got to see it through Live Barn. So shout out Live Barn. I mean, it wasn't really pretty. He crashed. It was a rush drill. He crashed into the board, slipping out while driving to the net and came up really gingerly, had to be helped off the ice. Like he wasn't putting any weight on his right leg. But today with the rosters being quote unquote announced, although the Ducks didn't announce it, but Cap Friendly did. Yes. He wasn't placed on IR. So that's good news.
That is extremely good news because for those that don't know, the way IR works is that if you're placed on injury reserve, you do not take up a roster spot, but you do have to remain on IR for 7 days. And the Ducks don't play after their game on Sunday until Thursday of next week, which would be after the 7-day mark from today. So if the Ducks thought that he was not ready for this weekend, or there's not a possibility of him being ready for this weekend, and they thought he wouldn't be ready until the 3rd game of the season, they would have just placed him on IR today. And so I think this is really good news because this means, 1, the injury is not going to be that serious, and 2, there's a possibility, and I think probably a strong possibility, that he plays one of the 2 games, if not both, on this weekend. And so we could get a couple days further into the week, and he may not progress as well as they would have liked, and they can do retroactive IR to Monday, and then once again, he can be activated for the game next Thursday, and they can call up someone. But if it was a preset thing of he's this hurt, he's not playing this weekend, and it's fully ruled out, they would have just done that. So I think it's good news overall.
We also have Elliot Freeman kind of saying repeatedly that it's not as bad as they feared, or it's not as bad as it initially seemed.
Potentially miss some time.
Yeah, like not really a true update, but the arrow is pointing in the right direction, which is that it's not as bad as it looked. Because it looked brutal. Like, I'm not going to lie. I was like kind of shaken up watching that.
I would say the actual play did not look horrible. What I think was very jarring was his reaction when he had to be helped off the ice, and his teammates' reactions all around him.
Yeah, and the entire practice stopped.
The entire practice stopped. Everyone huddled up around Carlsson, and he had to be helped up off the ice without putting any weight on his right leg. And so I think the play kind of looked not mundane. I wouldn't put it that. It was a high-speed collision with the boards, but you see that from time to time throughout an NHL game, right? And so it was one of those where if he just popped back up, you would have thought nothing about it. But yeah, Skylar Gustafson is saying that Puckpedia is stating that Carlson's starting the season on IR. So, maybe there's a little bit of confusion. Let me take a look at that while we keep going, though.
Yeah. So they have him as IR. Interesting. So they have Monday, October 9th. This is a update from Puckpedia. Leo Carlsson, lower body injury, will begin the season on injured reserve.
Well, that is a change.
Yeah, and we don't have like a timestamp of when that went up. Oh, hey, I'm if you hit the drop down arrow.
Yeah, I see that now.
Oh, that's funny. I'm just glad they're putting Crash the Pond nowadays. That's all that matters.
But yeah, so maybe that changes it then. So
maybe he is on IR, maybe he's not. I don't know. Like, I've seen Puckpedia kind of go off the beaten path before and end up being right. So we'll see. I mean, right now, the truth of the matter is we don't really know. The team has not said anything. The team has not even announced its roster.
They haven't released their roster, so that will, I think, be the telling thing here.
Yeah, but good on Skylar for bringing that to our attention, though, because I had not seen that. I do trust Cap Friendly pretty well, but Puckpedia is pretty reliable too, so we'll just have to see on that front.
Yep. I think if tomorrow comes and they announce the roster a little bit more on the Duck side of it, and Carlsson is not on IR, I think that's a good sign for him playing on the weekend. If he is on IR, then obviously he will not be playing on the weekend.
The other thing too is if he doesn't play to start, like if he doesn't play for the first week, like that's fine. Like it's an 82 game grind. We don't know like if they do intend on him being up all year. If regardless, like you just don't want to have to. You don't want to go out of your way to get those first few games in. Like you want to make sure he's fully healthy. So
I think the odd thing for me here from the roster perspective and why him going on IR doesn't make a whole lot of sense is now they only have 12 forwards.
Yeah.
That's why I don't buy the IR, him being on IR that much.
Maybe Zach Cassian has been secretly signed.
No, he was announced by the Ducks as being released from his PTO.
Hey, you never know.
But I feel like Andrew
Agazino
wouldn't have been sent down if that was the case. So
we just don't know.
We'll have to wait and see.
We just don't know.
Yep.
Next up, though, so we've got a few minutes here.
Yeah.
Just to quickly touch on what I think the roster will look like. So this is assuming Leo Carlsson plays. So first line, Zegras, Carlsson, Terry. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Great line. They look great in preseason. Caveats, of course, it's preseason, but they look great. Second line, Henrique, McTavish, Strome. I think that can work. It's not super ideal because I think Henrique and Strome are a little slow for McTavish, but like two veteran guys with an up-and-coming center.
They're all second-line talents, I think, in this league.
Yeah. And then third line, fourth line, 13th forward are kind of a poo-poo platter. Like you could really order it however you want. I do think Frank Vetrano is a lock for the third line, though. Like, I don't see him on the fourth line. And then you have Jakob Silverberg, who's been with Vetrano. Sam Carrick has also been with those guys at different points. So that's my third line.
So is Bo Grew also. I think Bo Grew in that Arizona game played there.
This is why I'm describing it more as like a charcuterie board instead of what will actually happen. Brock McGinn, Bo Grew, Max Jones, and Brett Leeson. And Brett Leeson had a great preseason. I thought he looked a lot quicker, a lot more skilled. So maybe Max Jones is the one who sits out. I'm just going to go out on a limb and predict that once everybody's healthy, whenever that will be, Max Jones will sit out. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I could see that. I think it's going to be one of Jones or Leeson, and they may be swapping in and out for the time. Because I think Brock McGinn is probably the best player out of, if we're going with the four players.
Brock McGinn should be in the lineup.
Yeah, McGinn
there's no reason for
Brock McGinn is the best player of that group. He's a good penalty killer. I think if Sam Carrick can regain the play they had 2 years ago, and maybe last year was a bit more of an anomaly coming off an injury, I think Carrick and McGinn as a kind of duo is a really good defensive duo, actually, that will play some low event hockey, which is sometimes what you need from your fourth line. Just don't get caved in, play good defensive hockey, maybe pick up a goal here or there offensively, but you're just reliable, steady, and you're going to play solid in those 12 minutes that you end up playing.
So you think McGinn is better than Vetrano?
Hardcore Luchador just said that. Is McGinn better than Vetrano?
I mean,
the four players I was talking about specifically were Jones, Leeson, Carrick, McGinn, to be fair. Okay. I would need to really think about that a little bit because the thing with Vetrano is he's just able to score goals, which while I think
he does add offense.
Yes. While I think he is such a negative defensively, I think that ability to create goals is a positive value add that is very difficult to find. And so it's whether I think that is a better situation than just the solid type of defensive steady play that McGinn brings.
The other thing we should remember is that Vetrano was like fine defensively before he got to Anaheim.
That's true. That's also true.
Like his numbers cratered under Dallas Eakins.
This could be a Dallas Eakins effect that is really impacting my opinion. If
he can get back to pre-Dallas Eakins hockey, Frank Vetrano, like he's just a fine replacement level player who can chip in some offense here and there, which for your bottom six is fine. And then to the blue line here quickly, Fowler Drysdale to me will be the first pairing. And then I think it'll be Lacombe Gudis and then Minchukov and Lyubushkin. And then as we found out, the seventh,
the big shocker.
This is the big surprise. We kind of buried the lead here, but Tristan Luneau made the team. Did not have that on my bingo card. I've said that probably a million times through text already.
I did not either.
And Urho Vakanainen is also on the team. That's
also did not expect that, to be fair.
Yeah, and so I think that the top six is pretty set in terms of like opening night. I don't see Luneau put out there next to Minchukov or something like that. But yeah, Luneau, I mean, I think he had a good enough preseason. Like he looked pretty, competitive back there, mobile, worked hard in the corners in front of the net, some just really clean first passes. Didn't really show anything that popped to me, like how Pavel Minchukov did, but he did play just a very solid and responsible brand of hockey. And I think that when I look at Pavel Minchukov, when I look at Jackson Lacombe, Tristan Luneau, and even up front, looking at like a Bo Gru and Leo Carlsson, I think that the Ducks really value that kind of style.
And I was about to say, and we will get more into this after the break. Fall is here, gentlemen, and it's about to get busy during the holidays. Don't let that stop you from sticking to your habits and being the best version of yourself. That's where our friends at Caldera Lab come in. These guys are the best in the skincare game with an easy routine. Keep your face looking pretty no matter your schedule. Plus, what's a better gift than clear skin? Join the other 100,000 men who trust Caldera Lab to show your best self and first impressions this fall. Plus, it's a great gift. Fellas, let's agree on one thing. You're going to brush your teeth today. Incorporating skincare steps before it guarantees to not mess up your routine, leaving your breath fresh and your face refreshed. And Caldera, actually, it's really nice. They provide you with a nice little card that tells you about all the different items in their skincare routine and when to use it. So you can put it up on your mirror, put it in your bathroom, and it will really help you understand when to put things on. They also create high-performance men's skincare products, and the regimen leads off their product lineup. A twice-a-day skincare routine that transforms your skin. Caldera Lab knows the skincare world is heavily female-driven and has long been the wild, wild west for men. That's why they're making the solution simple. The regimen includes 3 products: the Clean Slate, the Base Layer, and the Good. The Clean Slate starts your and ends your day. The Face Wash leaves all skin types refreshed. The Base Layer is your daily moisturizer to hydrate your skin and jumpstart your day full of confidence. The Good is your go-to multifunctional serum at night that helps your skin look tighter and smoother, as well as helps reduce the visibility of wrinkles and fine lines. Every drop of the serum is packed with 3.4 million antioxidant units protecting your skin. And the Caldera Lab Icon Eye Serum, it addresses the 3 most common skin concerns around the eye: fine lines, dark circles, and puffiness. Caldera Lab is the leader in men's skincare, made only with top-tier ingredients, and clinical trials have found that 94% of men's skin showed an overall younger-looking appearance after using Caldera Lab for a few weeks. 1 minute morning and night is all it takes to reduce your wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging. So, and just for our audience, we have an exclusive deal. You're not beating this offer. I'm telling you that much. You can use CTP at calderalab.com and you can get 20% off right now. So once again, get 20% off with code CTP at calderalab.com to make unforgettable first impressions with the best gift this holiday.
Great. Go check them out. Go check out our friends at Caldera Lab. Now, back to the roster. So I think
Yes.
Luneau just fits what the Ducks are looking for right now. This is, again, why I don't think Zellweger made the team, because he just wasn't quite there yet. But good for Tristan Luneau. I am very curious to see how much he will play. Right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like just my own gut is that he will get a cameo, a couple games, but I just don't feel like he's going to play very much. And I certainly don't think he's going to stick here the whole season.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens. I think Tristan Luneau making this roster is the biggest surprise. I think Bo Gru might be up there also. I think those are the two big surprises.
Gru is a bit more of a product of injury to me, with all due respect.
I think it's a product of injury. I think it's a product potentially of waivers also. You may not have expected Bo Gru to clear waivers completely, so putting him on waivers, you may have thought to lose him or not, whereas Tristan Luneau obviously is waiver exempt. And he would have had to go back to junior if he was sent down. So I think that you're probably right. Luneau is a bit more of a shock from that perspective. I am curious how it's going to work because they traded for Ilya Lyubushkin. And no matter how we view him as a player, whether you or I think he's good or not, that's all kind of irrelevant here. The Ducks thought it was necessary to go and trade a 4th-round pick to get him as a player. And so I think it's really interesting that Tristan Luneau is still on this roster because who does he play over? It's not going to be Jamie Drysdale. It's not going to be Radko Gudas unless there's potential maybe Gudas is still licking his wounds from a long playoff run and is maybe not fully healthy and is not going to be able to play every game There's maybe that theory that I think Derek Lee threw out there as just his own theory with no actual information behind it. And then you have Ilya Lyubushkin, which is probably the worst of those three players, but the guy that they just traded assets for. So I guess maybe it is Lyubushkin after I just kind of said all of that, but that's why I just don't think it's likely he stays up for that long or plays that many games. And so I think it is he's up here for a week or two. It's to get more practice time with the Ducks, maybe see a game or two of NHL ice time before sending him down, almost like giving him this carrot after having such a good year and having a good preseason. But overall, he's not going to be here for very long. Having said that, I think that there is an alternate side of this where he's impressed so much that they want to keep him here, and he is here for a couple months. I don't think that that's as likely of a situation, but I don't think this is a situation where he plays 8 or 9 games and goes down. I think it is he plays 2 or 3 games or maybe no games and then goes down, or he's up for a month or two and then is eventually maybe sent a release for World Junior. And then after World Junior goes back to the QMJHL after that.
Yeah, I
don't think that's likely. I don't think that's likely, but it is a possibility here.
Yeah, I just hate that model. Like it's like reminds me of what the Kraken did with Shane Wright. It's just like jostling people around doesn't work.
So the issue there is Shane Wright didn't play. I think this only works if Tristan Luneau is playing.
Tristan Luneau is not going to be a regular for 2 months.
I would agree with that, but like I said, if he ends up becoming a regular and he's played so well that you cannot keep him out of the lineup.
Yeah. I mean, that ain't happening. Like, okay. I'm just going to nip that in the bud. Maybe I'll eat crow. I'll devour a hat on the stream here if that
Didn't you say you would devour a hat if that Cassian was not signed?
I don't think I did.
Oh, okay.
You have to pull that up to
I don't
get me
know.
to do that. But Luchador did bring up a question which I had already kind of thought about, but the power play. Yeah. So I think it'll be the forwards will be Henrique, Carlsson, McTavish, Zegras on the top unit. Maybe you could throw in Terry instead of Henrique, but I think 23, 37, and 11 are locks for the first unit. They look great together. And then up top for the point, I honestly have no clue. Like, I could see it being Cam Fowler. I could see it being Jamie Drysdale once he gets his feet back under him. I could also see it being Pavel Mintyukov. It could go either way. Like, I honestly don't know. I could see them doing 5 forwards. Like, I just don't know. Like, Zegras could be a great quarterback.
5 forwards would be fascinating with this power play because
I honestly think if you don't have Pavel Mintyukov at the top there at the point, you should just go 5 forwards.
I think if it's Jamie Drysdale, I think that's an interesting look there because of his ability to move the puck.
But he just doesn't add enough once you're actually set up to really like make me that moved. And like I could be wrong, but like,
I'd be curious because he looked good in that role last year. In the granted limited time that he had there,
very small sample.
No, but it made me curious about it. I mean, do you think there's a chance Jackson Lacombe ends up there? Jackson Lacombe ran the power play in college.
Yeah. He looked really good doing it with the Ducks at the end of last season. Like he had his moments there. But yeah, I think that whoever plays the point on PP1 is going to be up for grabs. I feel like leader in the clubhouse right now is Cam Fowler, just based on preseason and kind of historical background. But I don't think it should be set in stone. Like Cam Fowler, like great defenseman at 5-on-5, but I just have never really felt like he adds a ton on the power play. Like he can be effective there, maybe as your second unit guy, but I mean, to me, he should not be a lock for that spot.
I mean, you just look at end of the second period in the game against the Coyotes when they brought the puck up the ice and ended up with Carlsson and Mintyukov having a little bit of a back and forth and kind of sending the Coyotes player all over the place before sending the pass over to Zegras, who hit the one-timer and did not end up finding the back of the net. But that little back and forth right there, I don't think Cam Fowler has that necessarily.
Wait, are you talking about Mintyukov?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, Mintyukov and Carlsson had the back and forth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but that's the thing is Pavel Mintyukov is thinking, he just doesn't think the same as Cam Fowler offensively. Like, they are just on different stratospheres, and I think Pavel is already ahead of him in that respect.
Well, I also think from the perspective of, I think one of the main issues for the Ducks power play last season was it became predictable, right? Yeah. It was get the puck to Fowler, Fowler's going to feed the one-time pass to McTavish, and McTavish is going to try to hammer it past the goalie. Like that was the power play, right? And they tried adding some wrinkles to it with Troy Terry being below the goal line, maybe giving the puck to Zegras on the half wall, and maybe trying to do things. But it all eventually led back to Fowler feeding McTavish. And I think the fascinating thing with Mintyukov is he's kind of a floater. He goes around the entire zone. He's not going to stay at the point if he's on a power play. He is going to end up below the goal line. He's going to end up all over the place. And from the perspective of wanting a free-flowing power play that is unpredictable, that opens itself up to that a lot more than having a Cam Fowler who's kind of going to be more so stationary at the top.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because if you watch the power play, the limited time we saw those kind of big guns together, there was a lot of movement. Like Carlsson was on the left wing, but there were times where he would end up on the right flank. Zegras was in that one-timer spot on the right flank, but he was also moving around. And so I think that the Ducks understand that, hey, like we figured out something last year, but we clearly need more than that. And Newell Brown is in there. I think he does understand what this team needs. He might not be hamstrung anymore by other influences. And so I'm very fast. I'm always fascinated by the power play no matter what. But I think this year especially, there's a lot to work with there, especially with Carlsson now in the mix.
Yeah, so. The one thing with Carlsson that I think in that Coyotes game really stuck out to me was on that left flank, I feel like he kind of loses a bit of his effectiveness, or maybe it was just how they were set up, because it felt like they kept trying to feed him for these quick shots, but as a left-handed shot on that side, there's just not really any ability to get a quick shot off from that angle. And it's like they kept working for that, but he couldn't do anything with it because it's not the right shot, and he's not the right player to be there. So yeah. I want to see a little bit of flexibility and movement there with him not necessarily being on that side as much, being in the bumper or being moved around a little bit more than being on that left flank. Because what we've seen from him is that's kind of his go-to, whereas Zegras would probably catch and make a pass off that.
In Sweden, he played on the right flank a lot.
Yeah.
And I just really don't love Zegras on the right flank. Like, I'll just, no matter how many one-timer goals he scores, I just don't think that's his natural spot. And he showed
you don't like the stick being straight up in the air, telegraphing the one-timer?
He does that like skyscraper backswing.
He does.
That I really hate, because it adds nothing to your windup. It just looks cool, maybe.
Quick side note on that. I was watching warm-ups when I was at the game on Thursday, and it was him and McTavish out late, and McTavish was just feeding him pucks from the left point to Zegras being down low on the right side. Every time, the stick is just straight up in the air, prepping that one-timer. Every time. And I was just like, this is hilarious.
It's just not him. Like, I think that last year he showed that he is lethal from the left side on his strong side.
Agreed.
But anyway, we'll have plenty of time to discuss that. But it's going to be fascinating. I guess this is a good segue into what instead of doing a season preview like we've done in the past, just our expectations for this team, what we think can happen, what we're ruling out, just kind of going through it.
One other point that I want to make, though, real quick about the rosters. Yeah. Because you broke down the forwards, I don't really have a whole lot to add there. I think if Carlsson is healthy, I think from what we saw in that game against the Coyotes, because we haven't even talked about it too much so far, but Zegras, Carlsson, Terry was just a joy to watch. Extremely fun. They are going to work together. They are going to be fantastic to watch. They're going to break down teams. I mean, you saw it on the very first shift of the game, right? They created a glorious scoring chance that Troy Terry probably should have buried when all is said and done. And they continued as the game went on. I mean, Greg Cronin just kept throwing them out there. I think you brought that up. Every other shift basically in the third period. And they were getting rewarded for having such a strong game. And so I think that is the right way to go, because you need to have some sort of line that is that effective as the season goes on. You need to generate offense there. But the point I wanted to make about the roster on the whole was the Ducks are opening the season with 3 rookies on the blue line and 4 guys under the age of 22.
Yeah. Youth movement.
Like, that is youth movement. And I think it's fascinating with how many people thought that, just kind of the contrast of that to a lot of people kind of reading into the Pat Verbeek comments over summer about wanting defensemen to marinate or whatever. I can't even remember what the comment was, but it was something along those lines of not wanting to rush them. I don't think he used marinate, but not wanting to rush defensemen. The league's hard to learn in, and about strength and all this different type of stuff, and thinking that meant Robert Hagg being signed was on this team. And turns out, no, he's not on this team. The Ducks, that didn't hamper any decision-making. Pat Verbeek didn't let that thought process impact him and make incorrect decisions in terms of making his roster cuts. I think from the perspective of he did not pick Robert Hagg over Pavel Mintyukov. He did not pick Robert Hagg over Tristan Luneau. He did not pick Robert Hagg over Jackson Lacombe. That is all a sign where we were critical, I think, of Nathan Beaulieu being on this team last year. And that, right?
Yes.
And I think you were the one that brought this up of we don't really know about Hagg because look at Beaulieu last year. I think that's a fair point. And I think this shows that this is a little bit of a different decision-making here. And this group is a little different than what there was last year. And I think 4 players under the age of 22 is extremely fascinating with this group.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Paverbeek does deserve a lot of credit for that. And I think that just having watched all these players throughout the preseason, I think that he made all the right picks too. Like, I think that Lacombe is fully deserving. Lacombe is an
He's
NHL,
had the biggest glow up this preseason.
Like, he is an NHL player to me, like right now. Like, there's just no question. And then Pavel Mintyukov looks great right now. You know, we'll see how, if he sticks the entire season. I think that he's capable of it. I think that he's looked good enough, but we always want to be careful with overrating preseason play, so I'm not going to go too far there, but I really believe in him now. And yeah, Luneau also looked good. And I think maybe the flip side to that coin is up front, you know, much less of a youth movement. But I think the difference with the forwards is that it was a lot more set in stone with contracts and just kind of the hierarchy there. Like, the only big surprise is, I shouldn't say it's a surprise, but like Leo Carlsson making it is noteworthy.
I also don't think there were necessarily any forwards that were pushing, or I guess the better way to put it, are of the skill caliber of a Pavel Mintyukov, of a Tristan Luneau in the forward ranks outside of Carlsson.
There was no Jackson Lacombe for the forwards, basically. Like Braden Tracy, Jacob Perreault,
Pavel Regenda.
Regenda is maybe the one where I think, you know, when you look at that bottom 6, like, he's, I think, good enough to play on that bottom 6, but it's just a matter of contracts too. Like Vetrano, Silverberg, Carrick, like these guys, like McGinn, these guys are all signed. Like, you're just not really going to be able to move those. So there's just less chairs up front.
My point is, I don't think he's locked in as an NHLer as much as a Jackson Lacombe. I think you could make an argument for some of those guys in the AHL.
Yeah.
Being NHLers or should be on the NHL roster. But I don't think any of them are of the talent of a Jackson Lacombe, of a Pavel Mintyukov, of a Tristan Luneau. And so I think that is the difference when you're looking at the forwards versus the defense.
Yeah, I mean, the counter argument would be, well, you know, Perreault and Tracy were first-round picks, but they just haven't materialized that way.
They have not played as well as those guys have in camp.
Yeah, and Mintyukov was a top 10 pick. Like, he's the real deal. Also, little bone to pick, it's not pronounced Mitnyakov. Like, please, someone get this over to the Ducks broadcast desk. Like, please, because it just hurts my ears every time I hear it. There's just no possible way it's pronounced that way in the mother tongue of Pavel Mintyukov. So, okay. But what do you expect from this team this season?
It's funny because Evolving Hockey put out their season projections this morning, and HockeyViz also put out their season projections. I believe it was last week at some point in time, and they're kind of very vastly different. And I think that's exciting and interesting in the sense of Evolving Hockey had the Ducks projected points at 70.7.
Okay. So
whereas HockeyViz, if I can pull this up quickly enough, had the Ducks projected at, I think it was 78 points. If I can get there, 80 points.
Wow. Okay.
80 points. I mean, part of it feels like the high end and low end of the two are very different. HockeyViz, Micah's model, has the highest team at 100 points for projections, with standard deviations kind of pushing things around. And the low end is Chicago at 76. Whereas Evolving Hockey has the high end at 114 and the low end at 68.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. I think probably the Ducks end up, I think expectation people should have is high 70s to 80 points. I think the Ducks should be trying to push for a 50% or a 500 record. And I mean, we have a quote actually, let me find it. I took a screenshot of it. On that Sirius XM interview that Pav Verbeek did, he was asked specifically about his expectations for this season. And not everyone would have heard this. Thankfully, Derek listened and put in our Discord the full quotation of what Pav Verbeek said. He said, Well, I think overall, when we kind of came into the season, we want to have a playoff mindset. I echo Greg Cronin's mindset here. We're here to win. What would be successful? Obviously, making the playoffs would be successful, but I think overall we finished 32nd in the league last year. I want to see huge improvements in our offense and our defense, so obviously the goal differentials. That's kind of where I'm going to be looking for big improvements, and if we can do that, we're going to be able to give ourselves a chance to win a lot more hockey games. So that's kind of where I'm focusing in. We're going to attack this thing in a playoff mindset the whole way. So that was a lot of speak. There wasn't a whole lot of actual like point projections put into there. But I think that sets the expectation of this is not a team that is looking to tank. This is a team that is looking to improve, to be better. And I think if I had to set probably a point projection off of that, I would probably think he's probably thinking high 70 to low 80s.
So I am not going to put a point projection on it,
okay,
because I think that the thrust of what Pat Verbeek is saying is correct in that we should really be basing our expectations on how this team plays versus what the end result will be. And I just expect this team to be competitive on pretty much every night. Even if it's a game against a top opponent, I don't expect them to get like trounced like they did last year. Like, yes, they're probably going to lose those games to those top dogs, but at least put up a fight. At least just don't get completely walked over. Don't be a doormat anymore, which is what they were last year. And I think that they can do that. If you look at the system that Greg Cronin is trying to implement, this kind of more aggressive man-on-man style, and just some of the personnel that they've brought in, this brand new blue line. I mean, this blue line is completely different from the one that they started this season with last year. The growth up front with some of the young forwards, like, I think that they can just be a pesky team to play against. And so if they don't do that, if they are once again a doormat or they're still very flawed defensively, like, I will have some pause. But also I do think that the first 15 to 20 games of the season, there is going to be some feeling out and some adjusting to the system that Greg Cronin is preaching.
So I think the one thing I'll add to that is I agree. I think that overall goal differential, expected goal differential, all that stuff, I think looking for improvements there is probably the most important thing.
Correct.
But I do think that you need to have, that needs to end up as some sort of increase in points, right? To show that it is working.
It will, though.
Lost Felix?
I'm here.
Oh,
hello.
Did you lose me? Is it my end or your end?
Your screen is frozen on my end. Now it's no longer frozen.
Okay. Well, that.
Can you hear me? Oh, people are saying your video is frozen.
Okay, I think it was my end, but I think I'm back, maybe?
Can you hear me?
I'll be... This is fun. I love that this is happening right now.
Oh, man.
It's been a long time since this has been happening. Let's see. Go on, Felix.
Okay, well, while Jake tries to fix his internet...
Oh, I think I'm good now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I've been able to hear you this whole time. I think it's something on like your own download or something.
Michael B saying I'm going in and out. So sorry about that for the people listening and live streaming.
Well, you sound fine. Your video cut out a little bit. Your audio was cutting in and out for just a tiny bit.
Okay. So where I was getting at was if you're going to have this progress, right, in goals for and expected goals for percentage, I think that does need to see itself play out in some sort of added point value by the end of the season.
But it will, though. Like, they're not going to be... What did they finish with last year? Like 50-something points?
58 points or something like that?
Like, they're going to beat that.
But that's my point. But that's my point, though, is I think setting some sort of expectation is important to understand what is considered success or failure, because improving in that goals for and expected goals for should lead itself to an increase in points.
But let's say that they finish between like 68... Like, let's say they have 68 points instead of like 72, right? Like, let's say that they're just below that 70-point threshold. Is it a failure of a season? Like, what if they had bad goaltending?
Yes, I think context is going to be important there.
Like, that's the thing. Like, on those fringes, that's why I think drawing a bright line is dangerous.
Well, I think it's just setting the expectation point. And you're able to then analyze it after that to try to understand, okay, what happened to cause them to be under expectation or above expectation? And that's where I think setting that expectation is important, because it creates these types of conversations of, okay, here's where they should be. They're not there. What caused this? Was it poor offense, poor defense, poor goaltending? What was that? So that's where I think maybe a high 70s point total. I think getting back to basically where they were 2 years ago, I think should be the goal.
I think that's a fine way to look at it. Because like at some point it should translate. Like they had 76 points 2 years ago. So
set that as your baseline. If they go over that, it's a success. If they go under that,
if they get back in the 70s, like I think that's a good step forward.
Yes.
We shall see. We shall see. But I'm looking more for just how they're playing. Because I've been burned before, and I'm not going to be burned again.
100%. All right. Anything else before we start jumping into some questions?
I mean, we've talked a lot about how the team is just going to play and how they're going to look. I'm very curious, what is going to happen at the trade deadline, because Elliot Freeman in their kind of team preview this morning talked about, hey, this is another season for the Ducks to acquire assets. And I'm like, well, they don't have big chips to cash in on this season. Like Adam Henrique, Jakob Silverberg, I don't know how much he's getting you, if he's even getting traded at all. Ilya Lyubushkin. I don't think this is going to be the type of trade deadline that we have seen in years past. Like, I don't see a mass sell-off going on.
I just remembered a bone that I have to pick before we get to questions.
Okay.
Can I go ahead and pick at this bone?
What is the bone?
The bone is, on my drive this morning, I put on the Steve Dangle podcast because I like Steve, I like Adam, I like Jesse. I think they're entertaining. And I feel like as the Leafs have gotten better, I maybe don't listen as much as I used to. But I tune in every once in a while because I like them. And I just always get so frustrated with their opinions on the Ducks. And I think the reason I'm bringing this up is I view them as a proxy in some ways for almost the general NHL opinion of teams, right?
Okay.
Because I think that is in some ways a good proxy.
Is it?
And their opinion on the Ducks were they are still early in their rebuild.
Yeah.
Where is this opinion coming from outside of the fact that they were just bad last year?
I mean, they are still kind of like at the starting line in a way. Like they have not yet taken that next step.
No, they have not taken that next step, but they are not the Sharks. This is a Ducks team that has Leo Carlsson, that has Trevor Zegras, that has Jamie Drysdale, that has Pavel Mintyukov, that has Tristan Luneau, that has Jackson Lacombe, that has all of these guys that are bumping into the NHL and starting to take those next steps. Like, this is much closer, and it's not at the same level because they don't have an Austin Matthews, but this is much closer to Austin Matthews the first year that he was in the NHL with the Maple Leafs. And they ended up in a playoff spot after finishing last in the entire NHL. And that's because they had been bad for a couple years and built up that talent base around him. And that is much more similar to where the Ducks are than being in the beginnings of a rebuild. And so this general opinion and general view of this Ducks franchise of being early on in a rebuild that you hear parroted at different places, it's just extremely frustrating and so lazy to hear that it's just really, really frustrating.
Well, the beginning of a rebuild to me is tearing it down.
Yes.
And the Ducks have done that. Like they did the tear down. They traded Lindholm, they traded Manson, they traded Raquel.
They've had 5 straight years of top 10 picks, all of who have hit.
Well, TBD on some of them.
On Mintyukov, sure, TBD.
And even McTavish. I mean, we still don't know with McTavish. But point being, I agree with you that, yes, this is not a team that's at the beginning. Like, to me, the teams that are really at the beginning of the rebuild are few and far between in the NHL. Like, I think San Jose is one of them.
Yes.
I think arguably the Canadians are still in the beginning of their rebuild because they haven't fully taken it all the way down to the studs, but they also have a lot of youth. So, I just don't think the Ducks are in that.
Chicago is borderline also.
I mean, Chicago is right there to me. Yeah. Like they are right at the beginning because they haven't even. Yes, they have a bit of a crop of forwards or a bit of a crop of prospects, and they have Connor Bedard, but this is still.
Bedard's the only reason that they're not like in that conversation.
There's not the makings of like a team. Like you look at that, you look at the team that they have right now, and it still kind of looks like a shell company. Like it's still not really, it's still not real quite yet. Whereas you look at the Ducks, and it's like, okay, there's something going on here that they're trying to be something.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the other thing I want to add, expectation wise, is trade deadline. I don't expect the Ducks to do the fire sale thing. I just don't think it's going to be that type of season, which kind of goes to what you're saying. I think they're going to try to be good, and then this leads to my next thing, goaltending. Like John Gibson, What's the excuse going to be this year for John Gibson? I want to see a return to form. I want to see John Gibson just be average behind an improved team. I think a team that will play better. But I think ultimately, maybe this is the season he loses his job. Like, I think there's a very good possibility that Lucas Dostal takes the baton and just kind of runs with it and replaces Gibson. I don't know if that will ever happen because it's so political, right? You know, changing your starting goaltender, but John Gibson certainly has a lot to prove for me this season.
Yeah, and about the deadline, I actually kind of think the Ducks could be soft buyers.
Soft buyers, wow.
By that, what I mean is that I think that if there is another player like an Alex DeBrincat, someone like that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that we've seen how good the Ducks blue line prospects are. And I think the rest of the league has seen that now.
They're not all going to play on the Ducks. Yeah.
You only have 6 spots.
Yeah.
And Gudas is signed for 3 more years. Fowler is signed for 3 more years. That takes up a spot on the left side and a spot on the right side.
And you're going to have to pay them all.
If Jackson Lacombe long-term is going to be on the team and as is Pavel Minchukov and Olin Zellweger, like, Lacombe's going to have to move to the right side. And so that ends up with what? Gudas, Drysdale, Lacombe? So where does Tristan Leno fit? And so there's just so many of these prospects that are coming. And we don't even talk about Ian Moore that much because he's in college, right? But Ian Moore is a really good right-hand shot defenseman. And if you like a Tyson Hines or a Nolan Warren, right?
I don't know if he's gonna sign with the Ducks.
I think there's another year that they have his rights after this one.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, if he goes back for another year, then maybe.
It's crowded.
But, yes. The point is that now is the time, right? I don't think that you're going to end up...
That's the only scenario I think that they quote-unquote buy.
They are that's why I said soft buy.
Yeah, just hearing the word buy for this team is just like... I don't even really see that as buying. I think that that's a move that they would make at any point in the season if it came available. Like, whether it's in the offseason or early or trade deadline. Sure, it could look as a quote-unquote buyer, but I don't...
And the thought process is you're buying a player that is young, that aligns with your core window. And so... Yeah. While Vixler brings up in our chat that why would you do this when they're still years away from being a solid playoff contender, the logic behind that is that it has to be the right player. You're not going to just go and get the first player that's out there and trade for the wrong guy or different things like that. You are going to find the right player that aligns with your age window of your team, and then he will be on your team for that entire playoff window. And also, if you go out and do this, you are then making yourself a solid playoff contender sooner than that. And you're dealing from this position of strength to make up for that, or to address that position of weakness.
Well, also, the Ducks are not really a true, like, this is why they're not a cutting room floor rebuild team anymore, is because they've, like, their main stars, most of them, like, younger guys, are on their next contracts. Like, they're not on ELCs anymore. Like, Trevor Zegras, bridge deal, Jamie Drysdale, bridge deal, but Troy Terry got that massive deal. And, other guys will come due, McTavish, Carlsson down the line, all the other guys we talked about earlier. So they're not really at this point of, hey, we're still, like, just a bunch of ELCs and we can play around. Like, they're starting to have to pay for this team. And they have a bunch of cap space, so it's not a big deal. But, yes, like, at some point you need to make this thing better and make it a winning situation. And it might just happen on its own internally, but bring in a star and kind of cashing in on that surplus of young D, that could be one way to do it. I mean, we have some questions, I think, that we'll get into that.
Yep.
So
all right,
we'll get there.
We're over an hour in. This is going to be a long one, but I mean,
it's fine.
It's the one that goes before the season. So
it's the mega pod.
We haven't even talked about the games on this weekend, but we'll probably have questions about it a little bit.
We didn't even get to see the one on Sunday. Like, it wasn't even televised. So
I meant this upcoming weekend. The actual NHL games.
What are we gonna say about those games?
They're playing Vegas and Carolina. Should be fun.
What else is there to say?
Will JL said for next week. So he left this during the week last week, but basically had this question: if Pat Verbeek was at the helm in 2019, would Zegras have been drafted? If not, who would he have gone for? So,
oh, man.
I saw this question and brought it up. Here's who went after Trevor Zegras: Podkolzin, Victor Soderstrom, Matt Boldy, Spencer Knight, Cam York, Cole Caulfield, Alex Newhook, Peyton Krebs, Thomas Harley, Lassie Thompson, Ville Hanola, Samuel Poulin. I probably butchered that.
Are you going to read the rest of the round?
I don't have to. I can stop.
Like, none of these, like, yeah, it's
No,
Like
they
Philip
take
Tomasino's not in play at 9.
they take Trevor Zegras there. There's just really maybe you take Matt Boldy, maybe.
I think Boldy. I mean York, possibly. I don't think they take Cole Caulfield.
I don't think they take York.
I mean, maybe. Like it's just.
I mean, you also have to remember, right, that Martin Madden is still like at the helm here.
Yeah,
and so that is definitely going to hold weight. And it's not as if Bob Murray was this guy that loved a Trevor Zegras type of player.
I think the big thing with Zegras was just that he quote unquote fell. Like he could have gone higher, and so that's why he went at 9 in part. And so I don't really see the Ducks not taking him still. Like I think they would have still drafted him.
Yep.
But who knows with Pat Verbeek these days?
Professional celebi. Is that how you say that guy's name? The person that's going.
That's not his name.
Oh, okay. Hunter said, "Who was the brilliant genius that said Cassian wasn't going to get a contract and was right?" That was me.
Was it you?
It was. Shaken Wing said, "How happy is Jake that Cassian is not on the team?" Oh, thrilled. D-Rock said, "How many games do you think Leno will play in October?"
I mean, I'm going 2 to 3 as my prediction. Feeling good about it.
Yeah, I think 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Doom Grouser said, "How badly do the Ducks lose the home opener against Carolina on Sunday? 6-1. Is the game better or worse than the season opener against Vegas?"
Oh man, that's going to be a really challenging game for them, Carolina.
I'm going with the hope play that the Ducks win this game 4 to 3. Because it's the home opener and shit happens early in the season that no one expects.
I don't think they're going to get rolled over necessarily, but I think the thing with Carolina that's different than the Ducks is that they already have their identity. They already have their foundation. They have their guys. They have their roster. They've been together now for years. And the Ducks are just trying to get to that point. So, hey, if the Ducks have done their homework, if they're prepared for that Sunday game, then maybe it'll be close. But if they're still feeling it out like we are kind of expecting, it could be maybe a little bit of a rough ride.
Is the game better or worse than the season opener against Vegas? I'll go better. I'll give them the home opener boost.
I'll go worse. Sorry.
Wow. I'm trying to be happy and positive.
But now, if it goes the other way, then you'll be positively surprised. So
yeah. Mr. Jared said, "Are there any surprises about the recent roster moves before the season, good or bad?"
I mean, Leno's the big one. We've talked about it. It's surprising that he's on the team. It's not bad. It's interesting. But yeah, outside of that, I don't think there's been any kind of like bad moves that I've seen.
No, and I think overall the decisions that they've made in the preseason have been good. I think the roster is probably the best roster they could put together.
I think I agree with that, yeah.
Yep. D Frenzy said, "Now that everyone is signed and the Ducks have the preseason behind them, do you think that the team will do better than last year standing wise, or do you think they will be in the bottom 5 of the league again?" I think they'll be better than bottom 5.
Yeah, we've talked about it, but yeah, they'll be better than they were last year.
Root
I guarantee that.
Jackson Lacombe, over or under 30 points this season?
I don't know. I'll go under.
You know what? Just to be different, I'll go over.
There you go.
Ducks Jaggernet said, What did you find concerning about their preseason results, and what do you think doesn't matter as much when reviewing those games?
I mean, what doesn't matter is that half the games, it's not even the team that it's going to play.
Yeah, but I think in the context specifically of the last 3 games, right, where the games weren't necessarily close in any of those 3 games, especially the one in LA. I mean, even the one in Arizona. Granted, Alex Stalock's last performance, and no one was able to see it.
So I'm not going to.
No one was able to see it either.
We didn't freaking see it.
So at least the 2 games we were able to see. I think the game against the Coyotes at Honda Center had its ebbs and flows, and the Ducks had a really strong third period to it.
They didn't play badly, I don't think.
No, but I just have a hard time buying into any preseason results after last season's situation where I've brought it up a few times now, but that last preseason game against the Kings, it was like a 6-5 game, really entertaining, back and forth, all this stuff. And it kind of got my hopes up for what the Ducks would be that last season. And they were nothing like that team at all throughout the season. So just led me to believe that, nope, don't trust preseason results. Don't worry about them. We'll worry about them once the season begins.
Yeah. And again, like, it's still not the full team, regardless of anything. Like, it's still not the full roster. It's not the full regular season intensity. They're still working things out. Like, it's just, don't put, like, I'm not personally worried about it at all. And
Yep.
and I would say the same thing if it was going the other way, like if they're playing great.
Ruge said, "How bad is McTavish's back going to be, knowing full well that he will have to carry both Strome and Vetrano on his line?"
Well, I don't think Vetrano will be on his line, but I could be wrong
don't
about
either.
that. We'll see what they do, but yeah, I think he's gonna have to carry the mail because there's not gonna be a lot of speed on those wings.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to have to be in charge of transitioning the puck for that line if it's Strome and Henrique.
Yep.
Plant Ranch said, "What are the possibilities for Olin Zellweger to get called up? Like, how many times can he get called up? And what do you think happens in terms of him playing NHL this season?" I mean, he can be called up and sent down as many times as they want to this year with him being waiver exempt. So expect that to probably happen a lot. I think he gets called up at some point during the season. I don't think he spends the entire year with the goals. I think at some point he ends up playing so well with the goals that you have to call him up. NHL games, I say 20.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, but I do think we'll see him in the NHL. Like, guys get hurt. He might play well. Pavel Mintyukov might fade. Like, we just don't know. But I think we will see him in the NHL.
Justin Beck 11 said, "On Monday morning of next week, what will the Ducks goal differential be?" -2.
Let's go positive. Plus.
So how badly? So you think what, they beat Vegas then? Because you said that's going to be the better result than Carolina.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll just go positive.
Okay. Malarkey said, "Do you believe Verbeek when he says Zegras is a core piece to the Ducks foundation for the future?" This is something he said in that Sirius XM interview.
I don't really buy it.
I mean, he said it.
Actions speak louder than words.
He signed him to the deal. We went over all that last week. I think there's some questions there, but I'm going to take him at his word on this for now. We'll disagree on that.
Good on you.
He also said, "Choose one Duck NHLer and or prospects that you think can be a top 10 player in the entire NHL within 5 years."
Wow. I mean, Leo Carlsson.
Leo Carlson's the easy one, which is why I'm trying to be different. I'll go with Pavel Mintyukov.
Yeah, I was going to say him.
Yeah, wanted to beat you to that because I knew you would.
Those two.
Yeah.
Go with those two.
Goose MN612, and there's a typo here potentially, but says, "When will Felix express his hidden desire for Jack Lopaka?" I think he meant Kopaka to be the 7th defenseman.
I've seen him spell it Lopaka before, so I'm just confused.
Okay.
Is he confusing him with Josh Lopina? Like,
I think it's a combination of Josh Lopina and Jack Kopaka.
Also, he's a forward. I mean, whatever. Next question.
Rude said, "How many games will it take for the Ducks to get their first regulation win?" 2, because I say they're beating Carolina,
2.
because I'm being hopeful.
2. They'll win one of those 2.
Okay. Jack Jane said, "How many points do the Ducks finish the season with?"
Let's
So
go
there's
70,
your
72.
prediction.
72.
I'll go 78.
Okay.
Let's see. The Puff said, "If Carlsson, Zegras, Terry is a line with either Carlsson or Zegras on the wing, what's a realistic point projection for Carlsson?"
Oh, if he plays the whole season, like if he plays,
Yeah, assuming that on that line the whole season.
I think that he can get to 60 points.
Yep.
I think so. Yeah.
Yep. Mitch Brown's beloved said, "According to Frege on 32 Thoughts, the podcast, supposedly both Elias Pettersson and Vancouver have both indicated that they're not sure about Pettersson in Vancouver long term. Neither want to make a commitment. If this is true, do you think Pat Verbeek should try for it? If so, what do you think it would take realistically? Are we talking multiple picks / good prospects like Lacombe, Hines, Warren, Leno? Or does this touch the A-tier prospects like Mintyukov / Zellweger, or even a good young player like McTavish or Drysdale?"
So one thing I want to clarify is that quote was saying, Pettersson has expressed some uncertainty. And what he was saying is that if that's what's going to end up being the case, then they might not be sure about it too. So it's not like this is like a live controversy necessarily. It's more like hypothetical. Here's the thing. If Elias Pettersson is available, you absolutely jump on it and you pay almost whatever it takes to get him because he's fits the Ducks window. He's amazing. He's a dynamic offensive star talent who's also great defensively. I do think, though, that every time these guys come available, we always think it's going to cost a king's ransom, and it never does.
Timo Meier.
I mean, Jack Eichel. Like Jack Eichel, sure, it was, what's his bucket? Alex Tuck, but yeah, Pierre-Luc Dubois. It's always just like pieces, right? It's never the best prospect on another team. So the Ducks might not have to really dig too far into their prospect pool to get him. But
I mean, probably a first round pick and one of Zellweger or Leno, or maybe not even that.
No,
I think
I don't think it would take that.
You don't even
Like in
think
terms
it
of
would take
prospect.
that.
In terms of prospect, I think it might be a little lower tier.
First round pick and Noah Warren.
Yeah, and then maybe like an additional pick or a roster player or something.
I mean, maybe you do Warren and Hines and a first round pick.
Yeah. I mean, if you do that, like if that's available to you, you do that a million times out of a million.
Yes.
Like,
Yes. Well, this is the point that we're making, right? You only have
Yeah.
6 defensive spots.
But let's say it took a first round pick and like Olin Zellweger. Like I think you still do it personally.
Yeah.
Like Elias Pettersson is just that good. If it would take a first round pick and like Mason McTavish, maybe that changes it because Mason McTavish isn't really a prospect anymore. But I still think you think about it.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, Dux
he's
was
just that
bringing
good.
up that Timo Meyer's a higher end power forward and Eichel had a lot of uncertainty while Pettersson is elite. 100-point scoring, number one two-way center. So maybe it does take a little bit more than those guys. But I mean, it's similar situations that they are in their
even if it
pre-agency
would.
year. And also look at Pierre-Luc Dubois, right? Pierre-Luc Dubois doesn't necessarily have the points, but I think almost reputation-wise, Dubois has this like reputation that brings up his value.
Well, I think just that even if the price does go up, fine. It's pay it, whatever. Like it's an easy conversation to me.
The issue is are the Canucks wanting picks and prospects or are they wanting roster players? Because that to me is the question of what are the Canucks trying to do?
If they're trading Elias Pettersson, like they're
Probably
starting
rebuilding.
Over. They're
Yeah,
starting
true.
over.
True.
So, like,
True.
like even if they don't think it, that's what's happening. So,
Yeah. Let's see. First place station said, who's winning the games tomorrow? Preds versus Lightning. Who do you have in that game?
I'll go Preds. No
I'll go
Vasilevsky.
I'll go Tampa. Nashville's bad. Chicago versus Pittsburgh. This one's easy.
You know what? Give me Chicago as an opening night thriller.
Wow.
Just because.
No, Pittsburgh.
Connor Bedard will score a hat trick in his first NHL game.
And Sidney Crosby will score 4 goals. No, Eric Carlsson will score 4 goals.
I would love if Crosby and Bedard went toe-to-toe.
The Penguins are going to be so much fun this year.
I mean, as long as they stay healthy, as long as they don't, get old.
And then the final game is Seattle versus Vegas.
Go Seattle. Go Seattle.
Yeah, I'll say go Seattle. Brad said, do you agree with the players the team kept and dropped to San Diego? And if not, are there any you disagree with? I think for me, I would probably have rather seen Olin Zellweger stay up and Tristan Leno been sent back to junior, just from the perspective of I don't know how long Leno's going to be up with the Ducks. And I think if you want to switch out guys for those first 2 games, really like the idea that I had come up with. I fantasy booked it basically from a wrestling term and sold myself on it of Minchukov playing Saturday and Zellweger playing Sunday, or flip that back and forth and let one of them watch the game from the press box. And you can really learn a lot sometimes from the press box. So I had fantasy booked that in my own head and sold myself on that being the route that they should go. So I guess if I'm going to say there's any I disagree with, it would be that.
Well, I kind of think that in a similar vein, but like same conclusion, but maybe different rationale. I kind of think that although I like what Tristan Luneau did this preseason, and although I really have doubts about Olin Zellweger's play in the preseason, I kind of think that it makes more sense to have Zellweger up right now because Luneau is just so much further away. Like he still has junior to play. Olin Zellweger is going to be a pro this year no matter what. And so I think I can quibble with that, but I don't disagree on the merits because just how they played, one did play better than the other. So generally speaking, I don't really have many disagreements. Maybe Pavel Regenda should be in there, but it's not like big disagreements, to be honest.
Yep. Shocking 911 said, probably too early to ask, but is there any team that have a short bad contract we could trade Gibson's long bad contract for without retaining?
I don't know.
I mean, we should mention Connor Hellebuck's deal that he just signed really opens the market a bit more for a John Gibson trade because
that does help.
And that helps significantly because it takes a major goalie off the market. If John Gibson still wants to be traded and the Ducks want to trade him and he has a bounce back year this year, right? Like there are going to be teams that will take him on at that contract because first off, that contract looks really good now compared to Connor Hellebuck because it's less AAV from that perspective. So the Hellebuck contract kind of sets the market for an elite goalie. So if Gibson can regain that form at all, it's going to help out the chances of the Ducks trading him from a AAV perspective. But yeah, from a team that needs a goalie and would trade for him and give up a big, long, bad contract, I don't really have one off the top of my head.
Well, the Habs just had to bury Joel Armia's contract, and I think he's got a year remaining at $3 million. So maybe they could make a trade there. Like, he's not a bad player.
The Devils are always the easy team to look at.
Yeah,
and say that there's a connection there. They don't really have any long bad deals though, do they?
Well, probably not because they're the Devils.
Yeah.
But Lou updating us that the Dodgers lost. So awesome. Great.
Are they out of it? I know we have Dodgers fans listening, so sorry for all of you, but
I'm not sorry. I'm a Giants fan. So.
You're a Giants fan.
But well, it's best of 5, so they're down 2-0 now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have not been paying attention to the baseball playoffs at all.
I haven't, because there's not really a team to bandwagon on for me.
The Angels hurt my soul too much.
Well, last year, the Padres making it was fun, even as a Giants fan. The Padres were a good story. But this year, it's I don't know. The Twins don't move me, put it that way.
All right. We're gonna get to YouTube and Twitch in a quick second. So please start getting questions in there. Throw a question at the very beginning for us. But I have one question from Twitter today from Troy Terry's Confidence saying, "Question for the pod: Can you guys rank each line from opening night against these legendary lines?" So from 2017. Opening night against. Let's just rank these lines. How about that?
Okay.
Instead,
okay.
The 2017 lines. Let's rank them because all the Ducks lines are pretty much better.
Where
than
are
these.
the lines? Where am I looking?
It's a DM to me. It's the legendary 2017 lineup of your top line of Richie, Grant, Perry, your second line of Cogliano, Wagner, Silverberg, third line of Shaw, Vermette, Waugh.
That's easy.
Fourth line of Liambis, Kosala, and Holzer. I forgot about Liambis.
We probably did podcasts about those games too.
2017.
The easy answer is the Vermette line with Kevin Waugh and whoever the other guy was.
What's number 2? Kevin Waugh. Oh, Shaw. Andrew Shaw. No, not Andrew Shaw.
Logan Shaw.
There we go.
He was fun.
Didn't you hate him?
He had some good stretches.
Okay.
He had a family member who would always DM me. So
number one, that line. What do you have as number 2?
Honestly, give me the Liambis Kosala Holzer line just for the pure just shittery and chaos of a defenseman. Mike Liambis is I think he's actually still playing somewhere in a fake fighting league basically.
Okay. That checks out.
But Kalle Kosala hit a Michigan in the AHL and I thought he would turn into something, never did. And then what was the Grant line? Who was the Grant line?
Richie, Grant, Perry.
I mean, okay, no, you know what? No, out of principle, Grant is going to the bottom. And so the Wagner line will be my third.
Cogliano, Wagner, Silverberg.
No, actually, no. Give me Grant line at number 3 because that line is just down bad. So
do you rank any of these lines ahead of the current Ducks lineup? I guess is probably the actual question.
None. Not one.
Okay.
Not one. Even the Perry, Grant, and what was the third guy?
Richie.
That is the only one that you have an argument, and I just don't buy that argument.
Man, what a team. What a team.
We've been through some shit.
We've seen some shit. So that would have been 17-18. So yeah, we did a podcast about that.
Yeah, we deserve good hockey. We deserve good hockey.
We deserve a playoff, a playoff round. We've had one playoff round.
I mean, at this point, I just want playoff hope. Just give me a playoff race.
Fair.
Give me a playoff race.
All right. So for those of you listening to this on your favorite podcast services, you can find us each and every Monday as the season goes on at 8 p.m. The only reasons why we won't be on Monday is if there is a game on Monday. But you can find us there at youtube.com/crashthepond, where if you're listening to this, I know you have a YouTube account.
Yeah.
I know that you do. Everyone does. And if you do, subscribe to our channel, like our videos. If you hit that notification bell, you'll be notified when the podcast goes live. You'll be notified when Felix drops a video breaking down Trevor Zegras.
Yeah.
Like he did on the weekend. That was fantastic.
Oh, we just hit 900 subscribers, by the way. So go us.
There we go. You will get clips of this podcast with fun little snippets from the episodes on YouTube Shorts. So go subscribe to us there. We see the analytics. If you're watching this on YouTube, I see that you're not subscribed. Subscribe to us there. And then you can also find us at twitch.tv/crashspawn, where if you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime gaming sub each and every month. You do have to hit that subscribe button after 30 days, and it does help out more than you can imagine. You can be just like Kempathu, who resubbed with Prime for his 42nd month.
Damn.
And the comment he had during it was free OZ. Free Zellweger. And then Fat Jarrell also resubbed with Prime for 28 months. So thank you so much to the both of you. If you have Amazon Prime, that's a really easy way to support us. So start throwing questions in the chat. I see a couple on YouTube chat, on Twitch. If you've got some, throw them in there. Duck said, what does Henrique fetch us if he's on a 25-goal, 50-point pace?
Probably
First-round pick.
Probably the Manson return plus, like maybe a better version of that.
I think
so
more. 20. If he's on a 25-goal pace, that means he's over 20 goals.
Yeah, I mean, I think first-round pick and a prospect is what I would look at in that situation.
Yep. Ducks also said, do you project Leo as healthy opening night?
I mean, I'm not going to predict that because I have no clue.
Too much unknown currently with the fact that one major cap website is not listing him on IR and another one is. So a little bit of
no clue.
Yeah, as Skylar brought up, haven't seen it announced, but yeah, Puckpedia has Leo on IR to start the season. Yeah, so we'll have to see there. Duck said predictions for one or more of these players. Predictions for one or more of these players. AHL point totals: Gaucher, Nesterenko, Passagov, and Zellweger. I have no context of actually what a good point total is in the AHL.
Well, I will say this: I think Zellweger will have the most points of any of those guys, assuming he plays 60 plus AHL games.
I was gonna say he's the least likely to play a full season is the issue.
But let's say that he does. I think he will have the most points.
So he will have the highest point per games. I think that is a valid question or valid point. I say he's at a point per game.
I think he's going to put up a lot of points in the AHL.
Yep, I agree.
And as far as the rest, I don't know, Nikita Nesterenko, just whatever.
Sure. Passagov maybe. Skylar Gustafson said, question, once healthy, do we see the Z Carlsson Terry line regularly?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what they want. I think that it makes sense. It's not necessarily what I would do, but given the lack of wing talent on this team,
yeah,
I kind of like just putting them all together. There was some consternation over the weekend of, you don't load up, that completely destroys the rest of the lineup. It's you need good lines to win games.
And it's not as if the second line's not a good line. Has second line talent.
You need lines that can score. The Zegras Carlsson Terry line will do that. And then McTavish, Henrique, Strome is just a second line. That is a true second line.
Yeah.
So
the only downside to doing it is that you do have a true top six, bottom six. You don't have this kind of top nine situation in a fourth line. And so you really have to be careful about those minutes. But
yeah,
I mean, the thing for the Ducks at this point in time is I think bottom six talent really thrives with a good system. And I think a system really makes a big difference there overall.
Yeah.
And so I think we're just so used to, under Dallas Eakins, the bottom lines being complete and hot garbage.
Yes.
And I think if these fourth and third lines can just be neutral or just a slight negative, and then you have the top line just being a complete and utter positive, dominating shifts, things like that, put them out there for 18, 19 minutes, and the second line taking advantage of things when they get it, but are more so a neutral type line, that is a recipe to have some success.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. Vixler asked a question. Is this Max Jones's do or die year in Anaheim?
Well, so he's an RFA with arbitration rights this summer.
They could just not give him a QO.
They could just walk away from Max Jones.
Verbeek has done that way more than I feel like I've seen a GM do, although I think it's just something that's happening more and more often.
Part of it, too, is, the cap situation. And anyway, there's factors there, but I think it's possible. He has not impressed me whatsoever in the preseason. I think that there's, as we talked about, in that bottom six, there's a lot of bodies. There's a lot of guys who can come up, maybe not this year, but the year after. And so I do think that he needs a good season. Maybe it's not a true do or die, but he needs a good season to really cement not just his place in Anaheim, but just his marketability for the next team. Because I feel like that's what really screwed Max Comtois, is that he was so bad in Anaheim that he was only able to get a PTO. And did he make the Vegas Golden Knights?
I don't know. Did. I don't think he did. I don't think I saw that he was signed.
Did the Golden Knights finalize their roster? Are they one of those teams that hasn't released it yet?
I don't know. Let's see. What are they listing on?
He's still listed as a PTO on Cap Friendly, so
Is he?
yeah. So I think that they probably didn't finalize it.
Yeah. So unknown.
But anyway,
all right.
but that's what can happen if you don't solidify yourself.
Yeah, and then Rooch said, who on the bottom 6 thrives statistically under Greg Cronin?
Ooh,
If
great
we're going to pick
question.
one player, I would say Brock McGinn.
Yeah, I think Brock McGinn is just the best player in the bottom 6.
Yep.
But I think the guy who could have the best like return to form is Sam Carrick, because I think that Sam Carrick was good under Dallas Eakins 2 years ago. Had a really bad year last year, along with everyone on the team, basically. So I think that he could see his stock rise back up.
Yep. So we'll get in. We now have in Discord a shit show section for questions.
I think we have one more question.
We will get
Vixler.
to that shit show after this question though.
Okay.
Vixler said, honest thoughts on Leia Hextall.
Like I wanted to root for Leah Hextall, like really bad. I think a lot of the initial pushback on her was unfair. I think it was problematic, to say the least.
Yep.
But I think as time has gone on, like she's made it harder to defend her, like just getting stuff wrong.
I think the errors are the issue, right?
Yeah, it's just like making mistakes, not knowing certain things. It's like, I don't want to be judgmental. I try not to be that, but there are a lot of really hard jobs out there that people have to do. And broadcasting is one of them in some senses, but I feel like preparing and just knowing the players' names is like the easy part of the job. You should be able to do that. Most people should be able to do that. And look, there is such a thing as, quote unquote, chalkboard blindness, stage fright, where you just forget on the spot. It happens to me on this podcast.
Same.
So I don't want to judge completely, but like we can only judge the result, and like that does affect my opinion of her like credibility. Doesn't mean she can never be good, but that's just kind of where it's at.
Yeah, I think that she gets way too much flack.
Yeah,
I think
like,
that I think
there's a lot of nastiness towards her.
I think the nastiness is really unwarranted. I think that early on she did a really good job. I think that I think the issue is she provides a very different cadence, a very different voice than a lot of your traditional hockey broadcasters. I think that is the flack that she got. And I think that was completely unjustified and unwarranted. And I think that giving her broadcast is a good idea. The issue, like you said, is the mistakes. And if those continue, then it starts to become a much bigger issue. So, yeah, we have a couple more questions that popped in. So we'll get to those. Duck said, I too am on the boat. The Ducks will be a team fighting to be a 500 team. My only problem is there are only 3 to 4 teams I can confidently see us being better than. Those teams being Chicago, Philly, and San Jose. Possibly Montreal. I can't see a team like Nashville that has Yossi, Saros, Forsberg, McDonough, and O'Reilly being worse than us. So I guess the actual question is, who do you see us being better than?
I think that's a really fair like objection, because there's a lot of teams in the NHL where you can't confidently say they're going to be bad. Like we kind of went through this with our recent fantasy draft. But yeah, I think they're going to be better than Columbus, better than Chicago, better than San Jose,
better than Philadelphia.
Pains me to say it, but I think they're going to be better than the Canadians. Mm-hmm. Pains me to say it. But outside of those 5, tough.
Yeah, but that's kind of the point, right? Is you want to
Vancouver?
start being in there and start pushing into that mix to where it's questionable that you could be better than them. They're maybe not for sure going to be better, but they're in that mix to start pushing up higher, which is where they start getting closer to 500.
Yeah, I think if you're outside of the bottom 5, like now you're at least in the mix, like you're saying, they could be better than Vancouver, because I just have no faith in Vancouver.
Yeah, same.
Could be better than St. Louis, because I just
could be better than Nashville.
Like I think Washington could really fall off this year, as I controversially said on our bonus podcast. I mean, hell, like maybe they'll be better than Arizona. Like we don't know. So there's a lot of teams that they could be, but those are the teams that I think for sure they'll be better than. So
yep. And Hardcore Luchador said, question asked over drinks say, how many 60-point players do the Ducks end with? How many 70? And is there an 80? I will go with, I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say they're going to have 4 60-plus point players.
Wow.
McTavish, okay. Zegras, Terry, Carlsson. 70, they'll have 2. 80, they'll have 1.
So is Zegras the 80?
Zegras is the 80, Terry's the 70s.
Okay. I buy that. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
All right, and now let's jump in to the shit show questions. Let's see if I can somehow work my way through this. D-Rock said, who is better, Sicard, Felix, or Gelix?
Well, I want to put this out there. So if you've listened this far, the next few questions are going to be more of just off topic.
Yes.
Shoot the breeze. So
shit show.
Listening from here on out, you're not going to miss anything hockey-wise. So keep listening. I would recommend if you want some laughs, but this will be a bit more off topic. So
yes. So in Discord last week, there was like an AI image that people kept posting that had the Crash Spawn podcast and it said like Jelix Rudolph or something like that.
But I would just say that if you're tuning out because you don't want to listen to the off topic, make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, leave us a review, subscribe on YouTube. If you just do those things, leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, it will go a long way. So thank you.
Yep. So who's better, Sicard, Felix, or Gelix?
I don't know what the fuck this is. So
well, there it is.
Yeah.
Jacob said, should Lou be banned from food takes? Yes or yes?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Let Lou live. Lou live.
Oh, actually, no. I don't want him banned. We need Lou. We need him as like, he's a spectrum setter. Like,
yeah,
we can always kind of rely on him to then potentially have a better take coming in. So
yeah, it sets the bottom of the tier. So thank you, Lou. Lou needs to be appreciated.
Yeah, I appreciate Lou.
I think Jaketh and all the lap guys should let Lou just have a 10-minute segment going off on food.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
All right. Johnny said, who is most likely to get banned from the Discord? I'm going to go with Appa for when he kept saying Zegras in all caps.
That was actually that was flirting with danger.
Flirting, very much so. And who had a better tenure with the Ducks, Lassie Thompson or Simon Benoit?
Oh my God, man, I feel bad for Lassie Thompson. I'll go Lassie Thompson.
I'll go Lassie Thompson also. All right. Plant Ranch said, "Who is your top 3, or what is your top 3 least favorite Halloween costumes you've seen or worn?"
Seen or worn? When I was like 4, or I don't know, it was like my first Halloween. I was like a robot, but I was basically just like a cardboard box. It was pretty rough looking, but that was a good one, I think. The worst one, I mean, all the like problematic ones, like if you're dressing up as like a Native American or like don't do that. I don't know. I can't really think of any. I haven't done like Halloween parties in a long time, so
yeah. I don't have strong Halloween opinions. I wear what my wife tells me I'm wearing.
Well then.
Yeah. Vixler in our Twitch chat, which is off topic also. Jake, updating our child's skating progress. No progress because we're working on walking still. So he needs to walk.
Does he need to know how to walk to skate?
Yes. He needs, yes.
Does he?
I'm not doing this little bit again. Not letting this bit continue. Second place, Louis said, favorite non-flip-flop shoes you've ever had. Flip-flops are an abomination of footwear, by the way. Lou?
They're not.
No, wait, I'm going to change my answer. From the earlier thing, Lou is the closest to being banned for that statement.
Favorite shoes, man.
I may actually go with the shoe that I have now, which are my Air Jordan Miami Vice Edition.
What? That is not what I expected you to say.
I love these shoes. They're just such a good color. If you see me at a game, I'm wearing them a lot of times.
They're wild footwear.
They're like they're mainly white and black, but they have some pink and light green accents to them. It looks really good. It's almost like the green the Ducks have had.
One of the most comfortable pairs I ever had is their original Nike Free Runs. Do you remember those back in the day? Yep. They were extremely comfortable.
Yep.
The other shoe I always wore in college was the Nike SB Janoski. It was like it looks like a Vans combined with a Nike shoe, and I always loved the look. But yeah, I'm pretty low key.
I mean, I love my Ultra Ranges right now. They're just a comfy, good looking Van shoe. Great look. Root says Lou face emotes win. I'll do it eventually. Hey, Odiflo said, thoughts on Leo Dan's musical legacy?
Who?
Leo Dan. Do you not know who Leo Dan is?
No, I don't.
He is the person that will be gracing Honda Center on the night of the season opener for the Ducks. The night before the Ducks have the season opener.
Who?
Or their home opener.
Who
Leo
is he?
Dan. I don't know.
Who the
Google
hell
him.
is that?
It,
Is he
Hey,
Mr. Irrelevant?
our good friend Mike said he was going to be at Honda Center in a week's time, or on October 14th. And
Why-
so,
Why is an Argentine composer and singer just why? Anyway, doesn't matter.
playing at Honda Center. Jack
Random.
Chains said, question for Felix. What were your feelings watching George Kittle secure a win for your 49ers, but also beating you in fantasy? GG's.
I mean, I'm good with it. Destroying the Cowboys always feels great. Hence the Niners hat on the podcast today.
Yeah. Let's see. The Puff asked, ravioli or Italian Hot Pockets? Change my mind.
You're wrong.
I mean, wait.
You're
A
wrong.
Hot Pocket is like Italian, though.
Oh man. Really? Don't do this.
They're a calzone.
Hot
They're
Pockets
basically
are
a
not
calzone.
food. Hot Pockets are trash. I wouldn't give my dog Hot Pockets. It's like just full stop.
A Hot Pocket, especially a
And I don't have a
pepperoni,
dog.
it's just a calzone. It's just a calzone. That's all it is.
No
It's
one
an
thinks,
easy-to-reheat
no one
calzone.
Thinks, no
Calzone.
one thinks these things. Like a nice, great homemade ravioli is.
Yeah.
You can't
no,
even compare that to a fucking Hot Pocket. I'm
I
sorry.
agree. A ravioli is not comparable to a Hot Pocket. It is not.
Okay,
It's
well
very
then-
different.
Well, then we're ignoring this question then.
But I'm
We're
saying a
ignoring
Hot
it.
Pocket is a calzone, so it is Italian.
I'm not doing this. I'm too tired for this.
Okay, that's it for these questions. Ducks had a question, though. Jake, won't you make the jump into the MMA world, being that you're a huge wrestling fan? I've had my ebbs and flows with
You've
MMA.
flirted with it?
I've flirted with it. It's fun to watch. I think the hard part with MMA is just paying for every single pay-per-view anytime
Well-
you have to watch it.
That's why you don't.
Yeah, that's why I don't watch it. Like, I'm
Well, no,
more than...
that's why you don't pay.
Oh, fair. I mean, you and I used to split, but...
I used to be really. We used to do that a lot, and
We used to
back,
do
I'm
that a lot.
Damn, I should have just been streaming. But
We did. So I've jumped in. I know some of the guys. I've had times where I've watched it more. And right now is the time I don't watch it as much at all.
It's entertaining.
It is.
It's entertaining. It's
Yep.
I respect the discipline of it.
It is an art form.
Yeah, and it's really freaking difficult.
Yeah,
like
100%.
like, I would never do that. Did we have anything else?
Nope, that is it.
There's some good chat in the chat here. Skylar's saying go Birds, see you in week 13. I mean, you know what? I hope that you have a good season for yourself. I can't support openly the Philadelphia Eagles, but that will be a great game. Does Felix even have a dog? I don't. But if I had one, I would not give it Hot Pockets. I don't want to poison it. Yeah, so anyway, on that note, we are almost 2 hours into this podcast. But you know
Yeah,
what?
I zoned out.
It's the eve of the season, and it just feels right. We're going to keep this party going all season long and beyond. If you want to help support us and keep this thing going, the number one way to do so, the easiest way, the least time consuming, go and leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. Just search Crash the Pond, leave a review. And if you do, like Not Bot Leggy did on Tuesday, we will read it on the show. So here we go. This is a 5-star review, new review, coming in hot for all you NHL fans. I'm trying to do my Kevin Weeks impression. It's not working. Breaking news. So this is the title of the review, Beyond the Eye Test. Jake and Felix view the game of hockey we all love with modern and collected approach, using analytics and stats beyond your grandpappy's plus and minus and
There we
points
go.
total that can't be seen through the eyes alone. The guys foster a friendly environment in the Discord, welcoming all, where you can find conversations about anything and everything. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you very much for the kind words. We do appreciate that. That's pretty much exactly what we're shooting for. A friendly environment, a bit of a different approach to the game. That's what we want. We want to have a good times.
Different than the conversations we'll hear on the broadcast.
Yeah, we're being asked to have the hockey guy on the show in the chat here.
We could.
Jake, do you want to chime in on that?
We'll figure it out.
Another way is you can subscribe to us on Spotify. Leave us a rating there. Leave us some feedback. Also, join our Patreon community. This is really, I think, the best bang for your buck. For $1 a month, you get access to our patrons-only Discord server. You get to connect with other diehard Ducks fans. It's honestly the best. You just heard it there in the review. People love it. It's welcoming. It's friendly. It's everything. There's channels for every single topic. Some good little sub-communities in there within
Yes.
the Discord. So like if you're a wrestling fan, there's a wrestling chat. If you're a baseball fan, there's a baseball chat. It's just the best. There's something for everyone in the Discord, which is something that I love about it. For $5 a month, you get the Discord, plus you get access to 2 bonus podcasts. And Jake and I laid it all on the line on the most recent bonus podcast. We did a draft of the teams we think will do the best. The loser, basically the person whose teams have the least amount of points, is going to have to do something embarrassing. So if you want to hear that, that was a lot of fun. Definitely some debates going on in there, so go check that out. Also subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit the notification bell, leave comments, do everything. Subscribe. I think it's more worth it than ever. We've got the clips going up of the pod, so you can get some bite-sized highlights of the podcast. We've got videos as well of player breakdowns, so if you want more of a film-based aspect to balance out our analytics, we've got you covered there. We're really trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. We're only 100 away. We're at 900 now, so please help us out there. Check out our website, crashthepond.com. We'll have a season preview article up there this Friday, courtesy of our good friend Mike. And then also find us on social media. We are on Twitter, formerly known as X, and Jake is on there at ReindeerGames91. I'm on there at Felix Sicard. And on that note, we are going to be done for today. Talk to you all next week, and we'll have Ducks hockey to talk about. Should be a lot of fun.
Hot Pockets are calzones. Bye!
They're not.